This chapter is composed of four modules. The first module is the introduction to normal distribution. Next, the normal distribution, the estimation and confidence interval, and of course, the sampling and sampling distributions. So hello, I am Jan Brian Siladon, and I will be reporting this chapter together with Jesmark Fernandez, Fresami Sarad, Marisa Sedigo, and Jeremy Madagit. All of us are taking Stat 1M together with BS Ed 1C. So again, good day, and let us start with the discussion. First, let us have the objectives of this chapter. So at the end of the chapter, the students should be able to identify the distributions as symmetric or skewed, identify the properties of a normal distribution, find the area under the standard normal distribution, find probabilities for a normally distributed variable by transforming it into a standard normal variable, find specific data values for given percentages using the standard normal distribution, use the central limit theorem to solve problems involving sample means for large samples, and lastly, use the normal approximation to compute probabilities for a binomial variable. There we have our objectives for the whole chapter. So to introduce to you the normal distribution, it is a random variables which can be either discrete or continuous. We could recall that a discrete variable cannot assume all values between any two given values of the variable. So a discrete variable is a variable whose values or value is obtained by counting. An example is number of students present, the number of red marbles in a jar, and the number of heads when flipping 3 coins. So next, on the other hand, a continuous variable can assume all values between any two given values of variables. So a continuous variable could be defined as a variable which can take an uncountable set of values. It is an infinite set of values. So when the data values are evenly distributed about the mean, a distribution is said to be a symmetric distribution. A symmetrical distribution occurs when the values of variables appear at regular frequencies, and often the median, the mean, and mode all occur at the same point, meaning they are of course equal. If a line were drawn dissecting the middle of the graph, it would reveal two sides that mirror one another. So the graph, as you can see here, is mirroring from the left to the side. There's no side that is different from the other, and the mean, median, and the mode are the same, which means that it is a normal distribution, which is also a symmetrical distribution. However, when the majority of the data values fall to the left or right of the mean, the distribution is said to be skewed. So skewness is a way to describe the symmetry of a distribution. So there is an imbalance of the number of data values that fall at the right side or at the left side of the distribution. So a distribution is left skewed if it has a tail on the left side of the distribution, while a distribution is right skewed if it has a tail on the right side of the distribution. So a left skewed distribution could be known as, we have the mean is less than the median, which is also less than the mode. However, at the right skewed distribution, as we have tackled, the mode is of course less than the median, which is also less than the mean. So next, the normal distribution, the shape and position of a normal distribution curve depend on how two parameters, the mean and the standard deviation. So meanwhile, let us remember what the meaning of the mean is. It is actually also known as the average of the data values. It is the data set is found by adding all numbers in the data set and then dividing the number of values to the set. So meanwhile, the standard deviation is the average amount of variability in your data set. It tells you on average how far each value lies from the mean. It tells you how far or how different it is from the mean. So each normally distributed variable has has its own normal distribution curve, which depends on the values of the variables mean and standard deviation. So it tells us that the normal distribution curve changes depending on the values taken by the mean and the standard deviation. So we can see here there are three different types of graphs. The first graph, or graph A, tells us that the graph have the same means but different standard deviations. So the height of the curve depends if there are different standard deviations given that the means are the same. So at the graph B, we have different means but same standard deviation. So the x-axis differs from the position of the graph is horizontally different because because the means are different. So at the graph C, we have different means and different standard deviations. So it absolutely separated from one another. The positions are far, given that the means and the standard deviations are different from one another. So it tells us that when there are different means and different standard deviations, what happens is the height and the position or the horizontal position of the graph is absolutely different. We have here conclude a normal distribution is a continuous, symmetric, bell-shaped distribution of variables. So next we're going to tackle about the summary of properties of theoretical normal distribution. So when you say theoretical, it is mostly referring to theories or set of ideas, and at this point, these are set of ideas that define and summarizes the properties of the normal distribution. We have first, remember that normal distribution curve is bell-shaped. As you have seen lately at the graph, it is bell-shaped. Next, the mean, median, and mode are equal and are located at the center of the distribution. Third, a normal distribution curve is unimodal. So the mode is the value that appears most often in a set of data values. As we can remember at our past topics, it has only one mode. So next, number 4, the curve is symmetric about the mean, which is equivalent to saying that its shape is the same on both sides of a vertical line passing through the center. So it is mirroring the left and the right. Number 5, the curve is continuous. That is, there are no gaps or holes. For each value of x, there is a corresponding value of y. So basically, these are self-explanatory, and also we have discussed this at the introduction. So the curve never touches the x-axis. Theoretically, no matter how far in either direction the curve extends, it never meets the x-axis, but it gets increasingly closer. Number 7, the total area under a normal distribution curve is equal to 1 or 100%. So the proof of this is beyond the scope of this textbook. So basically, we will not tackle or dive deeper into this property of a theoretical normal distribution. Number 8, the area under the part of a normal curve that lies within one standard deviation of the mean is approximately 68%. Within 2 standard deviations, about 95%, and within 3 standard deviation, it is about 99.7%. So conclusively, the standard normal distribution is a normal distribution with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1.
A normal distribution curve as a probability distribution curve. What is a normal distribution curve as a probability distribution curve? A normal distribution curve can be used as a probability distribution curve for normally distributed variables. Recall that a normal distribution is a continuous distribution as opposed to a discrete probability distribution. The area under the standard normal distribution curve can also be thought of as a probability. That is, if it were possible to select any value at random, the probability of choosing one, say, between 0 and 2.0 would be the same as the area under the curve between 0 and 2.0. In this case, the area is 0.4772. Therefore, the probability of randomly selecting any value between 0 and 2.0 is 0.4772. These are the summary of properties of theoretical normal distribution. For probabilities, a special notation is used. For example, if the problem is to find the probability of any value between 0 and 2.32, this probability is written as 0 or z is less than 2.2. And today, we will tackle about the normal distribution. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to A. Use normal curve to calculate probabilities. B. Determine areas under the normal curve. C. Convert raw scores to standard scores. And D. Apply normal distribution to different situations. Introduction. A normal distribution is a continuous distribution which become the basis of the entire theory of statistics. This is also known as the Gaussian distribution, which is named after Carl Friedrich Gauss. This is a bell-shaped curve. It's dependent on two parameters, the mean and the standard deviation. This ang natin nga ang another term or another words nga ma-associated sa normal distribution is also called the Gaussian distribution because it was named after sa nag-discover o nag-propose na si Carl Friedrich Gauss. Ang ng properties is a bell-shaped curve and there are two parameters between this and these are the mean and the standard deviation. A normal distribution is a continuous distribution which became the basis of the entire theory of statistics. This is a bell-shaped curve and it is dependent on two parameters, the mean and the standard deviation. The properties of normal curve. The peak of the distribution lies at the center of the curve, which represents the mean, mode, and median. This means that the mean, median, and mode are equal. Number 2, the curve is continuous. Number 3, the curve is symmetric about the mean. The tails of the curve are asymptotic, which the horizontal axis. Number 5, the total area of the curve is equal to 1 or 100%. Approximately 68% of the area lie between the standard deviation from the mean. Approximately 95.5% of the area lie between two standard deviation from the mean, and approximately 99.7% of the area lie between three standard deviation from the mean. Any normal distribution can be converted into a standard normal distribution by solving for the z-value. The z-value can be obtained by the following formula, where the formula is z is equals to x minus mu over rho, where z is equals to the z-value, the x is the value of any measurement, the mu is the mean of the distribution, and the rho is the standard deviation of the distribution. For example, and on a uh, example 9.1, on a midterm exam in statistics, the mean is 55 and standard deviation is 10. Determine the score of a student who got a raw score of 60. Find the grade of a student with corresponding z-score of negative 1.5. Solution, the z-score of a student who got 55 is, we use the formula, the z is equals to x minus mu over rho, where on the problem, the x is equals to 60 and the mu is equal to 55 and the rho is equal to 10. Therefore, we substitute in the formula, z is equals to 60 minus 55 over 10 is equal to 5 over 10 or equals to 0.5 or 1/2. For the B, the corresponding raw score of a student who has a z-score equals to negative 1.5 is, we derive the formula to get the value of x, or the x is equals to rho times z plus mu. Then x is equals to 10 times negative 1.5 plus 55. X is equals to negative 15 plus 55. X is equals to 40. That's the end of my report.
Next is estimation and confidence interval. The objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define confidence interval, compute the margin of error associated with a sample mean and a proportion, compute and interpret confidence interval, estimate to know the precision of the estimate of population mean and proportion. Next, identify factors that affect precision of confidence intervals. Estimations and confidence interval. Estimation is a method to estimate the value of the population parameter from the value of the corresponding sample statistics. Point estimator refers to a sample statistic such as sample mean, sample standard deviation, or sample proportion that is calculated using the sample data. Confidence interval estimation refers to an interval of values computed from the sample data that is likely to contain the true value of the population parameter. Confidence interval for estimation the mean where the standard deviation is known. The formula is mean plus minus z a over 2 times standard deviation over the square root of n, or mean minus z a over 2 times standard deviation over square root of n. The sample mean is greater than or less than mean plus z over 2 times standard deviation over square root of n, where z is the value corresponding to a commutative area of 1 minus a over 2 from the standard deviation normal distribution minus that is an upper tail probability of a over 2. Next, confidence interval to estimation population parameter mean when the population standard deviation is unknown and the population is normally distributed. The formula are mean plus minus t a over 2 n minus 1 times standard deviation over square root of n. Degree of freedom refers to the number of values in the calculation of statistics that are free to vary. P-distribution is the continuous probability distribution whose shape depends on the number of degrees of freedom. Confidence is the interval for estimating the mean where the standard deviation is unknown. There are times that standard deviation is unknown. For a large sample mean n is less than 30, a sample standard deviation is a good estimate and therefore can replace for the population standard deviation. If the variable x is normally distributed, then the following statistic has a p-distribution with n-1 degree of freedom. The formula is p equals to mean minus population mean over s the square root of n. For example, sample of estimation confidence interval where the standard deviation is known. A survey of 40 households found out that the mean age of Coron cooking pot that is made of clay is 3.5 years. Assuming that the standard deviation of the population is 0.5 year, find the best interval estimate of the population mean at the 95% confidence level of the population mean. The given are mean is 3.5, the standard deviation is 0.5, and n equals to 40. The formula is mean plus minus a over 2 times standard deviation over square root of n. So 3.5 plus 1.96 times 0.5 over square root of 40 equals to 3.5 plus minus 0.5, where the sample mean is less than 3.35 but greater than 3.65. This means that with 95% confidence, we can conclude that the mean age of corn is between 3.35 and 3.65 years based on the 40 household. The example where the standard deviation is unknown. A recent study of 25 students of the University of Antique revealed that the mean time engagement in their online class is 20 hours, and a week standard deviation of the sample was 3 hours. Find the 95% interval of the true mean. Given n equals 25, mean is equals to 20, and standard deviation is 3. Using the table of t distribution, we were looking for the value of t using df equals n minus 1 equals 25 minus 1 equals 24, and the 95% confidence level is two-tailed. So the formula is mean plus minus p a over 2 n minus 1 times standard deviation over square root of n, where 20 plus minus 2.064 times 3 over square root of 25 equals 20 plus minus 2.64 times 3 over 5 equals 20 plus minus 1.4. So we can conclude that the sample mean is greater than 8.76 but less than 2.24. That's all.
Here, okay, next is the objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to differentiate random from non-random sampling. B. Define sampling distribution and central limit theorem. C. Compare and contrast the different sampling technique. D. Compute sampling distribution of a given sample. Here is the sampling. Sampling is the process of selecting sample in order to make inferences about the population in which the sample was drawn. This is a practical way to do than to consider the whole population, which is very difficult and sometimes impossible to do it. Next is sampling technique. Sampling technique is a procedure used to determine the members of a sample. Sampling frame is a list of set of the elements belonging to the population from which the sample will be drawn. To avoid biased data, a researcher must make sure that the sample is representative of the population. To determine the sample size, there are several ways to determine the sample size. First is using the Sloven's formula, which is the n, which is the sample size is equals to n over 1 plus n e squared. Big letter n stand for the population size, then the e squared is a desired margin of error presentation of for non-precision because of the use of the sample instead of the population. 2 is according to Gay and Mills 2016, the larger the population size, the smaller the percentage of the population required to get a representative sample. For smaller populations, say n is equals to 100 or fewer, there is little point in sampling. Survey the entire population. If the population size is around 500, or give or take 100, and 50% should be sampled. If the population size is around 1,500, 20% should be sampled. Beyond a certain point, about n is equals to 5,000, the population size is almost irrelevant and a sample size of 400 will be adequate. Next, the major sampling techniques. A First is the probability or random sampling. It's a procedure wherein every element of the population is given an equal chance of being selected in the sample. B. The non-probability or non-random sampling is a procedure wherein not all the elements in the population are given a chance of being included in the sample.
We have here the common probability sampling methods. So there are 5 types of probability sampling methods: the simple random sampling, the systematic random sampling, the stratified random sampling method, the cluster sampling, and the multi-stage sampling method. Let us begin by tackling the simple random sampling method. Given each sampling unit an equal chance of being included in the sample. This is the definition of the simple random sampling method. So the fishbowl or lottery method, so this sampling technique can be done by numbering the subjects and then place numbered cards in a bowl, mix them thoroughly, and select as many cards as needed. So number two, second type of simple random sampling method is the table of random numbers. This can be done by using a table of generated random numbers with a computer. So for example, to select a random sample, say 15 subjects out of 85 subjects, it is necessary to number each subject from 1 to 85 and then eventually take a number so that you could have that random sample. So that is a table of random numbers. So those are just some examples of a simple random sampling technique. Next, let us dive into the systematic random sampling technique. So it is where samples are selected by using every case term or individual from a population. The first individual selected is a random number between 1 and k, or the position number of term. So the procedure in doing the systematic random sampling technique is: step 1, divide the population size by the sample size and round the result down to the nearest whole number. For example, we have 100 people and we divide it by 5. So let's say 20, you have 20. So use a random number table or a simple process to obtain a random number between 1 and k. And of course, starting from the random number obtained, select for the sample. So those members of the population that are in the kth position. Next, we have the stratified random sampling technique. Separate the population into non-overlapping groups called strata and then obtaining a simple random sample from each strata. So basically, you're just dividing a big number of group into a strata, or this is also called a smaller group within a group. So we have here proportional allocation. So these are the types of stratified random samples. So this process chooses sample sizes proportional to the sizes of the different subgroups or strata. So the sample sizes you're going to take is similar to the strata you have just divided the whole population into. Well, the equal allocation, so this process chooses the same number of samples from each group regardless of its size. Let me correct myself. The proportional allocation refers that when the smaller strata gets smaller number of samples, you get bigger number of samples from the bigger strata or subgroups. While the equal allocation, you get the same number of samples from each strata, the same, even if
the one is smaller, the other strata is bigger, or vice versa. Next, we have the cluster sampling. So this is sometimes called area sampling because this is usually applied when the population is large. Subjects are selected by dividing the population into groups, and then some of the groups are selected randomly. So procedure in doing cluster sampling, divide the entire population into pre-existing segments or clusters. The clusters are often geographic. Step 2, obtain a simple random sample of the clusters. And step 3, use all the members of the clusters obtained in step 2 as the sample. So this is called clustering because you basically cannot sample a whole population given that it is very, very big. Let's say a region. You cannot sample the whole region because there are different towns and municipalities at a region. You can just have cluster sampling. Lastly, this is one of the not so used type of uh, probability sampling. We have the multi-stage sampling. So the sample is randomly selected through 2 or more steps or stages. So let's say you have a stratified random sampling, and then eventually you integrate a simple random approach. So let's say you did a stratified sampling technique, and then you integrated uh, a Bal method, and the strata, the samples from the strata will pick a number at the bow, and then eventually you get the random samples.
Next, I'm going to discuss about the methods of non-probability or non-random sampling method. First, the accidental or haphazard sampling. Accidental sampling method. Samples are picked as it comes to the researchers. Many fields of social science like archaeology, history, and medicine pick samples this way. But often there is incorrectly assumed that the sample pick are typically of the population they come from. Next, the purposive sampling. Purposive or judgment sampling. The samples are selected by the researcher subjectively, and the researchers will pick the samples as he believes are representative to the population of interest. The third is the convenience sampling. Selecting a samples based on the convenience of the researchers or using it from the population members that are readily available. Next, number 4, the snowball sampling. A special non-probability method used to the desired sample characteristics is rare. Snowball sampling relies the referrals from the initial subjects to generate additional subjects. Next, the important points to consider when you are collecting the data. First, if the measurement of some characteristics of from people are being obtained, better results will be achieved if the researcher does the measuring. Second, the method of data collection may delay the process, so it's important to choose a method that would not produce a low response rate. Third, ensure that the sample size is large enough. Ensure that the sample is representative of the population.
Next, the sampling distribution. Distribution refers to the distribution of sample statistics such as the mean or possible samples of given size n. Take note that every statistics has a sampling distribution, and it estimates the corresponding population characteristics. Furthermore, each sample statistics is interested associated with a specific sampling distribution. To understand further the sampling distribution, suppose we have 5 different numbers like -2, 3, 5, 6, and 8. These numbers make rectangular distribution. However, there are some cases that it can be observed that sample means computed are different from the given population. These sample means are the estimates of true population means. As you can see, the sample could be higher or lower than the population mean. So these differences are expected. These differences in sample means and population mean is called the sampling error. Next, the central limit theorem. This theorem states that regardless of the shape of distribution of individual values in the population, as the sample gets large enough or n is greater than or equal to 30, the sampling distribution of the mean can be approximated by the normal distribution. Mathematically, we verify that the mean of the sample means is equal to the population means. That is, mu is equal to the or mean equals to mu of x bar, and the standard deviation of the sample mean is equal to the population divided by the square root of sample size. That is, the standard deviation of sample means is equal to standard deviation of the population over the square root of the sample size. Using our previous data, the mean of standard deviation of the population and the sample means are as follows. The difference in standard deviation of sample mean and standard deviation of population over the population size is due to the several factors like sample size, rounding errors, and shapes of the distribution.